What's happening, guys? Another Sunday scan coming at you, this time for November 1st. As we've said, things are just flying by. Weeks are flying by, months are flying by, and we're already at the end of the year, just about. We're November 1st, so there's a couple things to kind of think about going into year end. You've got a lot of tax loss selling type plays where the bounces, sometimes we call them January effect plays, where everybody takes their losses into year end and then they rebound. But over the last couple of years, I've noticed that they start to run into the end of the year. So something to think about. Maybe some people don't want to lock in gains and things just end up being a lot thinner than you think. So look, we've been talking about the market being hot. We've been talking about things getting more and more wild all year. And I even talked about it maybe last weekend or the weekend before, where somebody was like, are you just saying that? And then we have a DWAC, then we have PHUN, then we have Mark, things that I've never seen before. $6 gapper on a $2 stock that literally has a huge float. That it just doesn't make sense, but it's happening. So it's just something to kind of think about, something to be open-minded about. I think the most important thing leading into year end is to have an open mind. Think big picture. Think have an imagination, essentially. Have an imagination, and I think it will help you with what's been happening in small cap land. So we had a lot of stuff happen this week. Obviously, Tesla's been ripping to new highs over 1100, so that starts to have that trickle down effect. And I think that's one thing to understand about, what can you trade off of TSLA, right? And think about it. We had Lucid Technologies, LCID. We've got QS. We've got FSR. We've got all these different names, RMO, RIDE. I don't remember if those all went, XL. There's a whole sector of names that are in the EV space that are starting to get attention. And normally maybe a move would not happen, but because we've had a 20% move or whatever it was in the past couple days on Tesla, well, guess what? We've got a huge move on Lucid. So keep that in mind. That's what I'm talking about, having that kind of imagination on what could potentially happen. QS right now, QS is set up exactly like Lucid was. Not saying that it's the next Lucid, but have an imagination. And when things start to compound, the volume starts to compound, don't jump in front of stuff. Don't get exhausted. There's plenty of action on the backside of the move. But we'll get into that in a minute. A couple things for housekeeping. Obviously, I did not come up to Maine prepared. I did not bring anything to shave my face, so I am underprepared for this video, but that's okay. Free mind. You've got the free month of IU. I appreciate you leaving the comment. As you guys know, all you have to do is like and leave your key takeaway. If you leave your key takeaway, write the timestamp. So for example, if it's 10 minutes and 48 seconds, you write 10:48 and then write your key takeaway. That's going to allow other people to click that and go back and rewatch exactly what was an aha moment for you. It helps us, it helps you, it helps others, because then we end up turning those into small micro pieces of content and put them on Instagram, and we've got a lot of great feedback from that. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. It's a small ask, and I do hope that you guys do it. And plus, my t-shirt guy said we have a heck of a lot of shirts that he has printed, so I need to start giving away more and more. So I'll pick a bunch of winners next week for those that leave comments and give it a thumbs up. And so that's that. Avidity Fitness. Haven't talked about this in a while. I actually had Zach come out to Vegas. We traveled together, and he hadn't been on a plane in, I think it was 17 years. So it was a really big thing for him. He didn't really travel a lot growing up, and for whatever reason, he just kind of let it build up inside that he's not going to fly. And so we got him out there. We got him out to Vegas. And he did a great presentation about, how we end up, doing this during the day, trading, things to prevent that, things to counteract that. and things to be aware of long term, what could happen, etc. So, as I said in Vegas, I am going to put out a challenge, and we put these shirts out: eat well, train well, and trade well. And I preach consistency, right? So if you're eating right, I think that it's going to allow you to, have enough energy to work out right. And I think that between those two, you create enough energy to trade well. And when things are off, maybe you're not as alert in the mornings, maybe you're not as alert trading. And I think that they all go hand in hand. So as you guys know, personally, I use Icon Meals for my daily food, but Zach keeps me accountable. And the reality is that a lot of us probably could use somebody to kick us in the butt. And I surely can, because I know that if I'm just going to work out myself, I probably won't push it as hard as if somebody is there, with me, kind of coaching me along. So anyway, that is what Zach helps me out with. I go Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday with him, but that's in person typically. But on Tuesday and Thursday at night, 6 p.m., and Saturday and Sunday in the morning at 9, 10 a.m., we do the virtual Zoom. And so my challenge to you guys is anybody that signs up for free over the next 30 days, there's 4, 8, 12, 16 sessions. So 16 sessions. If you go to 10 out of 16 of those, I will donate $250 to Traders for a Cause. So we're going to have a sign-up sheet to do it. Last time we did this, we raised $10,000. So I am hopeful that a lot of you guys will participate. It's a very small ask, and all you got to do is get off your butt, get there, and get active, and we raise money for Traders for a Cause. And I'm doing a gala in December, so the money will go towards that. And it's going to be a nice end of the year. So again, sign up sheet in the description. And I really do hope that you guys take some time and actually give it a shot. You can shut your camera off if you don't want to. A lot of people leave it on. It's a great thing to kind of get to know some other traders. And again, don't worry about weights. Don't worry about, being nervous, etc. Day one's better than one day, and you'll be surprised what you can do. Last piece, before I get into a couple market thoughts and things like that, I just wanted to take a minute for those of you guys that knew Derek Leon. He was a member of IU. He was a moderator many years ago. We went skiing together. He went to Traders for a Cause quite a lot. A lot of you guys knew him, and unfortunately, he passed away this past couple days. So I just wanted to let you guys know that he was in the Momo Traders book, but it's quite sad. He was only 30 years old, and so I just wanted to take a minute to let you guys know, especially you're part of the YouTube channel. You've seen the interview with him. He was one of our first Investors Underground interviews. We ended up having him in the Momo Traders book, like I said, and he was a great part of the community for quite some time. So I just want to let you guys know and have his family in your thoughts and prayers. Moving ahead to the week ahead and talking a little bit about last week, I think that there's a lot of record weeks going on right now. And I think that is great, but it makes a lot of people feel like they didn't do good enough, that they should have done better. And, you start to get off course. So you want to make sure that you're focused on you and always becoming the better you. It's great to be inspired by other people, but a lot of people end up being influenced, and you forget how far you've come. You forget that you've actually done well for yourself. Without a doubt, you should use some of that as fire to trade better and make yourself better and be better. But if you use it to influence your next trade and push harder and go bigger and go crazier, at some point that will catch up, and it's not good. You need to make sure that you are taking the proper steps while sizing up. You need to make sure that you are building the proper process while sizing up. be cautious trying to push just because your buddy made more and you're trying to catch up. You're doing well. Look how far you've come over the last year or two. Look at the big picture. Yes, use it to inspire you, but be cautious forcing the trade to get there. I think that, we talked about it last week. DWAC was quite a trade, quite an opportunity. It completely changed the market. It brought some of the most insane trades that I've ever seen. Mark, PHUN, being a couple of them, BKKT. And like I said last week, I was a little frustrated because, I do have a stop on my account, and when I got on the wrong side of it, there was a little bit too much slippage that I, typically wouldn't have, but it was based on the average daily volume, and the route was rejecting the order. And so it gave me a little bit more slippage than I would have liked. But there's a couple ways to look at that. I could be upset about it, I could be mad about it, or I could just say, you know what, it is what it is, move on, next step, and that's that. And that's exactly what I did. Instead of trying to, fix it right away, I just came back the next day, focused, and it's a fantastic market. The market that takes also gives. You have to make sure that you remember that. Don't force things. But each day I came prepared, and each day there was just countless opportunities. So that's the good part right now. There is just so much opportunity. Every single day there's a handful of trades. Even if you didn't trade the big ones on Friday, you still had WIMI, you still had IFRX on the day prior, you still had OCGN continues to break out, QS is starting to set up. There's just so many that are beyond just trying to get the hot names, BKKT and DWAC. A lot of those you will get chopped up on. Friday we had HUDI, which was amazing. Short pre-market, and it completely came apart, more than 50%. But you need to protect your capital. And what happens is when you start to chase other people's gains, you put that at risk. And you start to come into uncharted territories, things that you're not familiar with. And then when you're faced with proper risk management, whether or not you have proper risk management, you find out that day, right? And so forcing it is never good. Make sure you clear your head. If you don't feel clear-headed, don't trade. Lucid, LCID, perfect example. I had crushed the first trade on Thursday. And second trade, I gave it right back. Third trade, had a great entry. I was up a ton. And then I ended up minimizing the trade. And I felt like it was getting choppy. I felt like I was trying to force the trade. I felt like I had missed a good trade. Because I wanted the breakout call. Last week we talked about 28 break for a 30 to 32 breakout. Obviously it went to 40. But I was starting to get a little bit, not emotional, but I felt myself trying to find a trade versus waiting for the trade. So I told myself I was going to wait until 2 or 3 p.m. I ended up fumbling the trade, missing the trade. It was a home run setup. It was the opportunity was amazing. And I fumbled it. And so I was a little frustrated about that, but what did I do? Same thing as DWAC. It is what it is. I missed it. It would have been great, but it didn't happen. So what? So I moved on. Next day I came focused and crushed it off of the open. So had I not been, clear-headed, had I not gone back to, what I'm good at and focused on that, and had I brought the prior day, I missed it, I'm upset, I'm mad. Had I brought all that to the table, what is that going to do for me the next day on the trade? Nothing. So just make sure that that's the mindset you're in right now, because it's going to happen every single day. You're going to say shoulda, coulda, woulda every single day. I found myself saying it, but I catch myself because it doesn't matter. It's always going to be shoulda, coulda, woulda. Okay, but all you can do is review what you could have done better and prepare for the next time. So don't worry about what you shoulda, coulda, woulda done. It didn't happen. You didn't do it. But focus on what you could work on to make the next trade better. Don't focus on what you could have done and what you could have made, because it doesn't matter. So that's it for the first part of this. We'll go right into the scan for tomorrow. I think it's really about understanding what is gapping up, understanding what makes a good play off the open, and then having those secondary watches so that you can be prepared when and if they hit your price alerts, when and if they come into your wheelhouse. And that's really how I've been trading the last couple of weeks. All right, so for the second part of Scan, as always, I'm not a financial advisor. These are not buy or sell recommendations. This is for educational and informational purposes only. So if you're not okay with that, shut the video off. If you're okay with that, and you're interested in learning about, how I look and how I prepare for the week ahead, then by all means, please continue and leave your key takeaways in the comment section and make sure that you leave a like. All right, so first and foremost, OCGN. OCGN's got a catalyst coming up again on November 3rd. So, just like this day right over here, which was 1025 or 1026, we had an intraday catalyst. So, I would not be betting that things will end up the same exact way, but at the same time, sometimes they will. And the way in which that it's been running and squeezing, there is a good chance that if it does start to extend and it stops going up, this has a history of pulling bids and going into circuit halts and really having some crazy action. So even if it did have a positive development, maybe it does a big pop and then ends up selling off because at the end of the day, it has run quite a bit into this catalyst. So we're going to have that this week. It's something to be aware of. It's something to know. So, if you are trading it that day, just be aware of it. But you can see we've got a beautiful daily chart, a lot of support, 7, consolidated at 9, ran up the other day, came in, trapped again, and now we're near, a prior breakout level. So we'll see what happens. On Friday, 1130s was that key level. So there was a nice little pullback there midday, and like I had said, we need to see that 1130 mark break if we're going to have that waterfall kind of pressure. And if you noticed, it went to, if I can get it on, 1130, there we go. It literally went right to 1130 and then rallied back and started to go. So I think that this is sort of that slow squeeze mode where you should be cautious trying to find the top. Edge for me is into either a parabolic move or after some sort of exhaustion. So there are times that I want to anticipate the potential crack, but it would be after, some type of big move or parabolic. I don't want to just kind of be adding and adding and adding because I think that's what a lot of people are doing. And if you look left, right over here, also, if you had a look at the 1050 level, we had a top right here, or excuse me, 1150. We had a top at 1150 right around 10:26 a.m. and then we had it again right around 1 p.m. So it put in a top at 1150s, and then it did a nice little exhaustion move, which is exactly what I like to see. Started to get heavy, so I liked to anticipate the potential pullback, assuming that 1130s is going to hold. So if it tries a few times and it bases, you don't want to fight that trade. However, if it cracks, obviously you're going to have that fast plunge to 1050, 1080s, whatever it may be. So that's sort of how I was focused on that one and looking for that trade. Obviously it held in and then it actually continued to squeeze out, which is great because the higher this goes, the better opportunity we're going to have. But like I said, be cautious stepping in front of trades like this. There's so much range after that initial move down. Look at DWAC, look at PHUN, look at Mark, right? Everybody is so focused on trying to nail the top, but you don't realize just how much is actually on the backside of the move. So QS is another one. Huge move right off the open, and then it never looked back. So this is one of those where I just think it's the sector and the theme right now. EV is hot. You've got XPEV, LI, NEO, Tesla, LCID, Lucid, QS, and like I said, I haven't looked at XL and all those. Let's see. Yeah, that one's not really participating. RMO is not really, and FSR was to an extent. But a lot of these are all starting to fuel each other. So this one looks a lot like Lucid did before it took off. If you put a line across right over here at that 28 level that we talked about on the last scan, that if it broke out, there's a good chance it's going to go 30 to 32. I mean, you're talking and you're looking at the same kind of situation right over here with where QS is right now at that 28, 50, 29 level. So the volume is coming back. It's not something that I'm crazy excited about too long, but if I did get long, I'd probably be looking for a pullback, consolidation, and then look to trade the red to green move. For a short, I'd want to see maybe a 30, 31, 32 type of blow-off move. I'd want to see agreement within the sector. So I'd want to see LCID and TSLA coming in, and if they're not, then forget it. I think that they're all going to kind of fuel each other, but I do feel like on the daily it has done a pretty good trap in that 26 range. It pushed out, failed, came back, pushed out, failed. And this kind of action is sort of the trapping action where, everybody thinks it's going to break out, then they don't, they give up. Starts to go again, they break out, and they give up. And then shorts say, well, it just tried to break out twice, it failed, I'm going to hammer in, and then here we are. And we're back over these prior highs, which was back on the September 24th, 23rd, 20, right around there. And so we're testing those key levels. We're over it, closed over it, but I think a lot has to do with what the sector is going to do. So let's keep that in mind. And then obviously Lucid, crazy breakout, just such a clean, perfect, almost was too perfect, too easy of a breakout, but really nice move. The volume is insane. And, who knows? Maybe this is just the beginning. We don't really know. That kind of volume is crazy. So I do think that you should be cautious. I do think that the fact that Tesla went over a trillion dollar market cap kind of starts to open up what market caps might be within this sector. And so just kind of think about that. Whatever you thought doesn't really matter. You just have to adapt and go with the flow until the market stops going up. Nobody cares right now. Everything is just going up, and really you got to dim it down. You got to stop trying to outsmart the market and trying to think that things shouldn't do what they're doing. Yeah, maybe they shouldn't, but they are. And I think that that's really what you just need to focus on. Go with the flow. But make sure you have risk management, obviously. Next section is failed follow-through momentum. So BKKT, I don't know. I mean, are we going to go to 50, 60, 80? Who knows? But, my thought is, maybe we have some type of weakness off the open, and it starts to push back up, fail, push back up, fail, and then unwind. We saw that on IRNT, just to kind of give you an example of what I'm talking about. So you had this huge squeeze day. It squeezed everybody out into the close, and then the next day it gapped down, and then it sold off. Next day it came up, sold off, and if you wanted to see what that looked like on an intraday level, if I can get there, let me just zoom out a little bit, and not on my regular computer. There we go. So you had this huge move into the close, comes back after hours, ramps back up after hours. The next morning, it pretty much kind of does a little push stuff and unwind. So that's how I would be prepared for BKKT, but at the same time, who knows? We've got options at play here. We've got a potential major short squeeze. So if it has a weak open in 40 bases, 38 to 40, starts to set a new trap and it starts to go, then I would completely change my bias and go with the flow and let this trade work and let it squeeze out. So we'll see what happens with that one. HUDI, I am thinking that this thing is still going to come apart. I actually was long this thing from 18. I bought the flush one day and I was like, you know what, I'll just let it work until it doesn't. And so in the morning, I got the information that it was basically a WeChat Chinese scam. And we've been very familiar with these: EJH, UTME, TIRX, as well as many other names that been fortunate to be a good piece of, or get a good part of. And so I was able to exit all of the long over 28, 27, and get a short off over 27 and 26 and 25. It flushed straight down, covered a good piece of it. Started to re-add a little bit, but it started to freak me out a little bit. So I covered some and then resized in on the short side and got a great piece of that trade. So it was really a gift. It was a perfect heads up, nice early in the morning, pre-market at $28 per share. And it was a home run for a lot of traders. So it was nice to see. And personally, I'm hopeful for a little bit higher, but I am thinking that we end up under $10 in the near term. That said, you want to be super cautious. So what you'll see intraday is, although it came back, towards the close, that's just covers, in my opinion. So I think they dumped out a bunch of the paper, and then later on they stopped selling, or they blew out all the paper, and then the short cover came in, and it's just such thin tape because everybody's got such a high average from the dump, and nobody wants to sell it. And then, here we are, it starts to kind of inch up, and people get a little bit nervous just in case it goes into a circuit halt up. So you got these jumpy candles. But for me, 17, 18 would be ideal, and I'm looking to potentially fade it back under towards the towards the singles. Low teen singles would be ideal. But be proactive with it, in my opinion. You don't want to, get too aggressive and think that it has to do anything, but this is definitely one that, they sold a bunch of paper, and you have to be aware of that. And every single one that we've talked about ends up, doing the same thing. This was the dump day over here on EJH, and it got saved that day, just sort of like Huddy did, and then it came in the next day. And then we had UTME, which was a very similar situation. They're basically all these Chinese shells. They walk them up, and then they, completely dump them. And the other one I was talking about was TIRX. So very similar situation. Crazy, crazy, crazy unwinds. Not something that you want to be buying on the front side of that move for sure. So be aware. I call them liquidation plays. Liquidation in the sense that every chance that it rallies, they're going to be looking to exit stock. There's no real market. They're kind of finding where that market is, essentially. It was a fictitious market before. And then as things start to kind of come in, they're kind of getting a feel where folks might make the trade, where they might buy it, where they might soak it. Next section is continuation. We had a lot of goodies from last week. BGI, if you guys paid attention, that was a nice long idea in the mid threes. It is, I think it's over, or at least near 7, yeah. That was a nice, just steady, buyer in the tape. We talk about the buyer in the tape. You can see it coming up from VWAP and steady up, and then it busted over all those prior highs, and it hasn't looked back since. So it's a very thin name. It's unfortunate. I used to actually have a decent percentage of this company back in the ones, and I made it all the way up till 4, and then it came back in, and I was a little frustrated with myself because I had so much, started to come back in, and one day it just started ripping after hours off of a newsletter, and so I went ahead and moved on. But I got a little bit of it this past week, but not to the capacity that I should have. Actually, it was this day maybe that I had the big gap up. But at any rate, very nice opportunity. GREE finally came in. You guys saw the call, the idea there. Volume finally came back in. It pretty much matched this volume day. That was 24, 25 million, and we were right there at 28 million. So there's a possibility we gap up a couple bucks. Maybe we blow off 30, 32 is possible. Whether or not it goes much higher than that, who knows? We'll see. But I wouldn't be looking for a miracle. I guess it's always possible, but Really nice move. And it felt like they were cleaning it up the last couple of days. I mentioned that on Wednesday. I said, it feels like this move is close. We need to watch it. Essentially, each time it pushed, it failed. And that kind of action, shows that somebody's coming in and buying and then they're letting it fade off. They're coming in and buying and letting it fade off. And we've seen that a lot because what that does is it cleans up the chart. If you've seen it run up $2 or $3, then just fade off, you're going to get frustrated at the second time or the third time, and you're just going to say, you know what, screw it, I'm done with this stock. It's all psychological. And so what they do is they start also to train shorts that every time it comes up, it goes down. So then on Friday, the volume was there. So that's something that I really watch. And so that first swipe, I said the same thing. I said, I feel like, the day that this holds a $3 move is the day that it's going to go $8 to $10. And we went exactly $10. It went to 30.50 after hours. And it was the idea was at 20.50s. So really nice. I have about half of the position left. I expected the move, but I didn't expect it to happen that fast and without headache. I thought I was going to have to really, sit on my hands and try my best to hold through dips and stuff. But I mean, it literally went straight up. So it was really nice. Another one, Givo, I have partial position left. This one, anybody that's not in the room that, saw on Twitter, I posted the other day about if 670 started to firm up, it felt like there was a buyer in the tape this day after it had pulled back. There was an article that came out at 670s or so, and it just stuffed, and it came right back down. So I had put on a little bit, and I had been watching it since, because I looked at this, and I looked at all these other names that have been consolidating for so long, and they're literally one PR from, a big move. And the next day, I had a buyer on the tape, which I, pointed out that, there's obviously somebody absorbing this this stock, and that was on Thursday. You can see it just kind of was steady, steady, steady over VWAP. Steady, 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 and then obviously the rest was history, and it went up nicely. So I had a decent amount of shares in that, size down. I'm going to let it work. I'd love to see it flush out real quick to rebuy a little bit, but as long as it holds an overall trend, I'll be there. If not, I'm not going to overstay, but I would like to add if 680 to 70 start to form a new higher low, higher base, and then 750 I feel like is that trigger spot on the daily where it's kind of been, topped out for quite some time. Last couple that I am watching, IONQ. I do have a small position. The idea was on the 11 break, and I definitely minimized this trade, but this one feels like they have shorts a little bit trapped. I'd love to see it pull in. I'd love to see it consolidate in the 14s, 1380s, 14, something like that, and then maybe have that secondary move where you look back and you're like, whoa, that thing went crazy. That's what it feels like. But I don't want to force that. I don't want to force that trade, knowing that that's what I think, and then have this bias and just let it take over. I want to let it prove first. So I have some, but I'm hoping for pullbacks to be able to scale into that trade. WTRH, this one was a great one. I was watching it and it didn't really register in my head, and then Dawson had mentioned it to me in the room, and he's like, Nate, that's like your textbook, the wicks, the wicks that you talk about every Sunday scan. And I was like, you're right. And so I put on a few right away, and then it had a great breakout that day. And so you can kind of see, let me just go back to that day that it started to break out, right over here. And it was holding VWAP the entire day. And at this point, you can kind of see that they're starting to have pretty much a consolidation above 175, 180, or that range. You can see a higher low forming. It's not always going to be perfect. So, sometimes when people have a stop at X price and you get stopped out by a penny or two, it's frustrating. So you got to think big picture, what range overall needs to hold. So overall, if this level starts to get heavy and stay heavy and not continue to base, then I want to reevaluate the trade. Am I in too much? Have I taken enough profits off? And if the answer is no, then I probably want to adjust. If the answer is yes, then I'll probably let it work. But you can see that it's kind of stuck in this channel right now. It did have a PR. It ramped up on the PR. Feels like it's just consolidating in this 175 to 2 range. So if we form a base over 2, then we could have that next nice breakout. Does feel like that transition has happened. New buyers in the tape, new kind of blood comes in, and if it does start to break out and hold over 2, then we could have a pretty decent move. Last but not least, on the prepared ARQQ, another one where it was kind of thin this day, and I wanted to be participating in weakness. Sometimes you see people chase it up, and then you hope that those people that chase it up dump it down. So that's what we got, and so I was accumulating a little bit along the way. Feels like maybe it's the type that could get away and break out just like Gree did, maybe a $3 to $5 or $10 type of day, something crazy like we saw in the past here. But I'd still want to see it sort of form a new base at 22, 23 before I get excited. Other than that, just a couple comments. IFRX, TRIT, and HCWB. These are all ones that are potential liquidity traps. Nothing I'm excited about, nothing that I think are going to go. But if they do start to hold oddly well, they did have some ridiculous volume. Then the second day had literally no volume, on a percentage basis, maybe 5 or 10% of what it had before. So a lot of times I look at those to see if they start to form a trend. If they should have died, they continue to go. A lot of times you might have that secondary move. So I wouldn't expect it, but I'm going to set price alerts for those. So that's it. That's what I'm prepared for. But once again, if you guys can give it a shot, join us with Zach at Avidity Fitness. All the link will be in the description, and I hope you'll join us, and have a good rest of the weekend, and we'll see you in the room on Monday.